Hey there folks, Rel here. Today I wanted to do something kind of different and give you a really quick guide for how to take awesome screenshots in PlanetSide 2. Also there's a gallery in the description of some things that I snapped, so feel free to take a look. Not a whole lot, but you might get the picture. The reason why anyone would want to do this, besides just making cool photos for the fun of it like I did, is that you can make a really nice background image, for your desktop. And this is the one I'm currently using. So since there is no spectator mode in the game currently, we have to go with our second best option, which is to disable the heads-up display entirely. So you can turn it off by pressing Ctrl plus F10, or you can open up the settings option and turn off draw HUD in the gameplay tab. And disabling the HUD is going to take off every little icon and interface prompt that usually appears. I gotta warn you though, there is a bug right now where if you die and you don't immediately re-enable the HUD, then you simply won't be able to do anything. You'll be staring at your corpse and you'll have to Control-Alt-Delete to restart the game. I've done this so many times, and you figure I'd learn from it. To capture screenshots, I'll be using Fraps, but there is also an in-game screenshot feature that I'm not sure what the bind is. But the cool thing about Fraps is that you can set it to take screenshots automatically at intervals. So I have mine set to 3 seconds right now, so it'll snap one regardless of what I'm doing every 3 seconds until I shut it off. Another useful thing is that I also have it bound to a thumb button on my mouse, so I can snap something quickly whenever I want. And after that, I'll just open up the folder and then kind of, just kill the photos that aren't useful, and just keep the gems, the ones that stand out. So to take the best photos, we naturally want our settings to be as high as possible to make the pictures look nice. But one thing that's kind of up in the air is the use of motion blur. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. Motion blur will it'll make all the projectiles and the vehicle lights and all the special effects, it'll make them really pop, but it might blur your photos as well. So here's an example of good motion blur use, and one of bad motion blur. Still, it can make some pretty interesting effects even if nothing is in focus. You can see in that picture here. I think it looks pretty nice. Another thing you can tool with to adjust your photos is the field of view, which you can access on the gameplay menu as well. And a higher field of view allows you to see more vertically, but it tends to warp the left and right sides of the image a bit. If you choke up on the field of view, then you have a very specific, very limited focus, which it serves some purposes in itself. So here's an example of how field of view changes things. And you might notice, if you try this out, that turning off your HUD doesn't make your character go away. So you still exist, so does your gun. The workaround to shooting clear photos is by equipping your weapon with a scope that completely encases your screen. So in other words, it has to apply an overlay instead of using your player model. For infantry, every scope that's above 4x will do this. So you're talking the 6x, 7x, 10x, and 12x scopes. This of course forces you to be zoomed in to at least 6x for standard weapons and up to 12x if you're using a sniper rifle. But the alternative is to use a lock-on rocket launcher, and it'll give you a pretty low magnification scope, but you will still be able to see your hand sitting in the bottom right corner. And this you can always crop it out, or you can just leave it there. It doesn't really matter. Night vision is another exception to the rule. It's technically a 1x scope, but you zoom in a little bit like you do every time you ADS. And you can create some pretty interesting effects as well, like all the vehicles and the infantry. They'll look like kind of cardboard cutouts, just pure white. But if you really want to take photos without any zoom at all, if you sprint while carrying a proxy mine or an ammo pack, you won't see your hands at all. So that's an option, but it could be a little difficult to get a proper shot while you're sprinting, and it definitely won't work if you have motion blur enabled. You could probably pull off some pretty interesting effects, but everything is it's going to be really, really blurry, right? When it comes down to actually being a cameraman, the best class for it is infiltrators and heavy assault, because you do still exist, so you're very likely to get shot at if you're just kind of chilling out there and trying to line up, shots. Invisibility and shields help you stay alive, But if you're trying to go for a bird's eye view of things, then you can light assault is pretty good. You can find a spot, sit up on a balcony or whatever the case is, and then take a look down. So an alternative to infantry vehicle use is that if you're in a flash, you can equip a high-powered scope that will allow you to zoom past the barrel of the vehicle. And the same can be said for flying vehicles, the gunner seats. If you have a dedicated pilot, you can pick up all sorts of cool shots. And that is about it. I know I spoke very, very quickly, but it is a pretty simple concept that is a lot of fun to play around with. PlanetSide 2 can be an absolutely gorgeous game, and if you're interested in being the camera guy, at least for a little bit, maybe try it out, then you can snap some pretty awesome footage or photos. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them below, and thanks very much, folks. We're all signing off.